What is going on, guys? Average Player here, and it might be a little bit of a different audio. I'm going through the Blue Snowball on my PC because I'm not trying to hook up the big mic right now because that's in a different spot. And sorry if the audio changed a little bit. I was trying to adjust the volume on OBS, but we're going over the ban list, right? Some possibilities, and I know you can see the cards that I have chosen up. According to Konami, they're going to be shaking up the format based off of a recent post that they had about YCS. They had so many people on the YCS, and that they were going to say that that's the last format that these decks could be viable. So I'm touching on those major decks and also touching on some other cards that could or could not be hit or limited. That's why we have a new section called Unchanged, because we're going to be touching on that. But the first card we're going to be talking about is Opening of the Spirit Gates, which I feel like is going to be limited. And I'm going to put an asterisk of this and put Dark Beckoning Beast here, because they won't hit Spirit Gates and Beckoning Beast. They're going to hit one or the other, right? They're not going to hit both, and this is going to be the hit to Yubel, on top of probably banning Throne, right? I mean, they could limit Throne too, right? Which would hurt the deck a lot. So you have that combination. You're limiting or banning Throne, and then limiting Spirit Gates or Dark Beckoning Beast. You're not having an even medium there. You're not gonna hit all three. You're only gonna hit those two. All right, Red Reboot I feel like should go to 1, and this is a very big check to a lot of trap decks, right? Because if you're gonna be hitting decks like Snake Eye, you're gonna be hitting decks like Yubel, you're gonna be hitting decks like Branded. You're not touching Lab. Lab is still gonna go and be very powerful. It's gonna go unchecked. Bring up Red Reboot to 1 and make it to where you have a chance to win if you're playing against Labyrinth, if you're playing against Trap Tricks, or whatever it might be, right? So if you're checking all these big decks, you got to make sure you have something to check something that could be the next big deck. And I feel like Red Reboot could be that one to check it. If we're all going to talk about checking backrow decks, though, I'm talking about putting Heavy Storm to 1. It's not as impactful as it was back then. Destroying your own spells and traps nowadays isn't very good. I mean, it still can be depending on what deck you're playing, but I don't know what deck would want their stuff to be destroyed. And plus, you're probably just going to use it like a Featherstorm anyway when you have nothing and just get rid of your opponent's crap anyway. So, I don't see why it couldn't go to 1. I feel like it's perfect to be at 1. That's just me. I think 1 is okay for it. And we're going to go another limited. We're going to go Sangan Summoning to 1. I feel like this is the perfect Tenpai hit without absolutely killing the deck. And there's another card on here. There's another couple cards in here that's like an indirect hit to Tenpai, but it also hurts them. So, but it also hurts a whole bunch of other things. So we're going to say Sangan Summoning to 1. It reduces the consistency of the deck. And also doesn't allow you to have that unaffected nature. You get rid of your Sangan Summoning, you get your opponent's Sangan Summoning, it's gone, it's done. You can interact with them. Same reason why Misk is at 1, Sangan Summoning should be at 1, and I'm not going to talk about the Gimmick Puppet Field spell because that just came out. Alright, I'm going to put Appaloosa in banned. They just banned Borreload Savage Dragon. They just banned Baron to Floor. I could say they're going to ban Appaloosa. The possibility is that they won't because it got announced for the Megatins, but I've seen them ban a card and then release it anyway. So, and then we're going to put IP here, because if they don't ban Appaloosa, they might ban IP, right? IP making Appaloosa, IP making Goddess on your opponent's turn to board negate, IP making SP to make it very good as an interruption on your opponent's turn. If Konami's trying to change the format and turn something different into it, I feel like hitting either one of those two cards could be it. I'm leaning more towards IP, even though I don't want to see it go. I feel like IP would be the card that they'll probably hit first. Summon Sorceress, it just got an errata in the OCG. We have yet to get it here in the TCG, but if it gets an errata, it's definitely going to 1. Even though it's still very strong, I still feel like Summon Sorceress can come to 1 and it really won't do anything with the errata text. And that I feel like that's fair. It is still a very good card, but it's limited to what decks can play it instead of every deck. Yeah, Beatrice can get out of here. I don't need to explain that. Super powerful. Fiend Smith abuses it, and it makes every deck so much better. I shouldn't have to explain Sanctifier either. Giving your opponent a card has never been such a good idea because it allows you to do so much other stuff. Look at Grinder Golem. Look at Gimmick Puppet and Nightmare. Ido. You know, those are just examples of giving your opponent a card. Summon Sorceress gives your opponent a card, allows you to do stuff. Right? Even if you don't give your opponent a card, you just use that card, make your own stuff. Right? You know, giving your opponent a card is not something that turns out to be good in the long run, right? I understand it's locked into just branded, but you're also playing Sanctifier in decks like Voiceless Voice, which is a hit to also Voiceless Voice itself, because they play Voiceless Voice branded and they make Sanctifier to Jaugen you. So here you go. This is my take. They're not going to ban Gimmick Puppet. Gimmick Puppet's not the problem. Because if you get rid of Sanctifier, right, because you don't have Expulsion, you're automatically getting rid of the Gimmick Puppet right there. The only deck that can play the Gimmick Puppet in Nightmare is Gimmick Puppets themselves. But Gimmick Puppets themselves don't even play the card because they're going to FTK you anyway, and Nightmare is not even that good of a card to FTK you with. Right? Technically, they could summon on your turn, but they're going to kill you anyway. So there's no point of even using the card. Shifter. No, I'm not putting it to 2. I'm putting it to 1. That is my take on Shifter. Right? I feel like Shifter at 1, it still is there if you draw it and it gets interrupted. Gamma, Ash. I forgot to put Gamma on here. I'll talk about Gamma. Gamma called by whatever, right? Then you're not going to see it again. You don't have the chance of activating another one. You don't have the chance of doing whatever, right? So Shifter to 1 I feel like is fair. You're not going to ban it. You're just going to put it at 1. It's fair. You know, it's still there to be for those decks that need it, but it's also not as consistently in your hand. And we're still seeing your floodgate cards at 1 still end up popping up, but it's not as often. So I feel like Shifter could be that kind of card where if you see it, you're probably going to win, but you're not able to get it consistently, so you give your opponent a chance to play. Fabled Lurie, I feel like, is going to be the other hit to Yubel. Not Yubel. Fiend Smith. Right? You discard it out of your hand. It gets special summoned back out. It's a light fiend. 1 card Requiem. Right? You find a way to get it into the graveyard. Discard it from your hand. Boom. Back out. It's a 1 card combo. Right? It could be their way of checking Fiend Smith on top of Beatrice. So you have to make extra deck monsters. You have to find a way to get interrupted instead of just, oh, look, here's this, and then I also have another path to do it. Now you're kind of into a more linear, this is how you have to accomplish it if you don't open Engraver. You know, you have to make Moon and then go into Requiem. Or you just have to have a deck that naturally plays a Light Fiend like Vice or something like that, and Light Sworns. So you just gotta... This is the compromise. Making the Fiend Smith combo more linear, make it something that you can interact with more, make your opponent play into interruptions, make your opponent more susceptible to that Nibiru, make your opponent more susceptible to, you know, the Ash Blossom. They're not dumping cards to the graveyard anymore because they're going to ban Beatrice. You know, stuff like that is, you know, the way I see it. Right? I don't know why I put a semi-limited section here. I don't think I'm putting any cards there. Pankratops to unlimited. Yeah, it's not doing anything. That's about all I can say. Pankratops isn't doing anything. Putting it to 3 is just another Fenrir. Basically, it. Fountain. So this is where we're gonna start. Also putting another card to 1. Fountain's currently at 2. Putting it to 1, and it's checking the Runic decks. You get rid of the Fountain, they're probably not gonna be able to play. It checks Stun. It checks White Force. It checks everything. Right. You could make an argument to put Tip there, but Tip's at 3 now, so you could put Tip at 2. A little bit of a consistency thing, but I feel like the consistency hit to Runic is to keep hitting the Fountain. That's why I put Fountain here, nothing else. Flamberge. Alright. Flamberge is here. You can see Ash is coming up. We'll talk about both. Flamberge is a problem, right? It's a boss monster that recurs itself and summons more, right? It also places stuff in the Spell and Trap card zone. It can special summon the Spell and Trap card out, right? Flamberge can keep coming back out every turn. It summons 2 Snake Eye monsters. right? And I can also bring a card out from your spell and trap card zone, like IP or whatever it is, right? And causes more problems. It makes bigger interruptions, bigger boards that are harder to deal with, especially when you have cards like Promethean Princess in the format, which I don't think is going to get hit yet, right? So Flamberge, that's my take, right? Flamberge is the problem. You're gonna hit it. And since we're on the Snake Eye cards, we're also going to limit Ash. So you're getting rid of Flamberge as a boss monster, but Snake Eyes can still compete with their consistency, right? They're hyper consistent. We're not hitting cards like Wanted. We're not hitting cards like Original. We're not hitting the Yubel Star. None of that. We're hitting Snake Eyes Ash to 1, and Flamberge is getting banned. You're hitting the consistency of the deck, and then you're also hitting the boss monster. So you're limiting the grind game, and you're limiting the boards that it can make, right? You're still going to have access to Fiend Smith. You're still going to have access to the Yubel Star engine, which you're going to have to play other cards to get up there to your combos, right? You open the Ash, fine. You open Poplar, fine. But you don't open more than one Ash. You're recycling that Ash many times anyway. So in all reality, you're limiting the amount of times you're limiting the chance that you're going to see the Ash in your opening hand. Because once you see it, and you have access to that Ash, because you can search it multiple ways anyway, then we're compromising here. Ash going to 1 is fine. I mean, you could, instead of hurting Ash, if you hurt Ash, technically you could ban Original, but I don't feel like you're gonna hit both because I feel like that's too much for the deck. I understand you're getting rid of an engine and making the deck more pure, but I still feel like that's too far. This is a bold take. We're gonna ban Terraforming, right? Since you're not hitting the Yubel field spell. Since we're hitting the Yubel field spell and we're not hitting the Nightmare field spell, the Gimmick Puppet field spell, right? We're gonna ban Terraforming so that Gimmick Puppet field spell is still at 3 because it just came out, but you don't have that extra copy in Terraforming to try to get it out, right? Reduce the consistency that you're seeing the field spells that are very good in the game. The Snake Eye field spell, they're gonna search that anyway, so the Terraforming hit doesn't really do anything to it, other than it reduces the chances that you're going to see it, right? Same thing with Nightmare Throne, Terraforming. I know some Yubel decks will play Terraforming to get Nightmare Throne. And then I know the Gimmick Puppet decks do play Terraforming. That's an indirect hit to Gimmick Puppet to bring it down a little bit in power. I don't feel like I know Gimmick Puppet's powerful, but I don't think it's as powerful as people think. Especially with the field spell only says unaffected by monster effects unless they're XZs, but you imperm the deck, they're still gonna, you have to imperm more than once, right? They're still gonna struggle. If they can't see the field spell, then you're still able to interact with them, with Ash and Valor and stuff like that. We're gonna put Pot of Prosperity to 1 as well, right? This is another check, right? A lot of decks play Pot of Prosperity, and you put it to 1, they're still gonna play it. And you're not going to see the consistency. So, look, all my hits, consistency, 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 broken, might, consistency, grind game, making a combo more linear. You see where we're going at here with the format, right? Pot of Prosperity, it brings down power levels of a whole bunch of decks. You're not going to see Pot of Prosperity as much. You open it, you still can reveal 6, and it's still a card that can be played, but it's, again, a consistency hit. You're not going to see it as consistently. You're not going to be able to excavate the top 6 cards of your deck to get one card that you want as consistently as you want. Right, so limiting a card like Pot of Prosperity. Look, many of the decks that I can think of that play it right now. You got Fluwandereeze, Sprite, you got Kashtira, you got a whole bunch of decks that don't care about their extra deck. You got Runic that could play it because that's a free spell card in the graveyard. You got Sky Strikers that they could play it because it's a spell card in the graveyard, but they like their extra deck. I'm just trying to name decks off. There's still a whole bunch of people that play that card, right? Because of how good Pot of Prosperity is with revealing 6 off the top of your deck, adding 1 of them to your hand, right? So strong. Right, so this is where we're getting at with the ban list, and the way I'm thinking about it is just adding a consistency hit to it. Right, we're hitting a whole bunch of decks, we're hitting consistency on a whole bunch of things, generic cards, all this other stuff. I know I always say generic cards, and Sprite Elf is technically a generic card, but I feel like it should go to 1. You're shaking up the format, right? Sprite isn't really doing anything now. And you don't really have any other level 2 decks out unless you're playing Frogs. But Frogs aren't that good either. And then what else do you got? Not really anything. You're gonna summon back Totally Awesome with it. I mean, like, okay. Right? In Waters, you're gonna summon back Totally Awesome if you're playing the Water deck, right? Cool, but you still have to have a 2 to be able to make Elf, which could, in some cases, you have to go out of your way for. I feel like Elf is a good compromise here, because you already have so many hits to tier elements. We're not bringing back Kalos, right? But you still have Elf that you can use to bring back. It's Merly. Bring back Merly so you can have access to your tier plays. In the same aspect of things, you no longer have IP Masquerena, because IP Masquerena plus Elf, I'm telling you, makes a goddess that you can't deal with. Because if you make goddess under the zone that Elf points to, goddess cannot be targeted. It's unaffected by card effects unless it targets it, but it can't be targeted. It also cannot be destroyed by card effects at all. So goddess is literally indestructible there unless you swing into it. So it makes it even stronger. So Elf comes back is also because an IP hit, right? If they hit IP, I can see them bringing back Elf. It might be too soon, but I'm a Sprite player, so this is it. And then also, the only semi-limited card I would put here is, aside from your Gamma, maybe the Dragon Rulers, right? The Dragon Rulers are slowly coming back. Whatever. Cyframe Gear Gamma could possibly come back. And it's a way to check cards like D-Shifter, Snake Eyes Ash, it's a way to check hand traps. So I feel like Gamma could come back. The Synchro decks aren't really don't really play it at 1. And I feel like if you play it at 2, you still have that chance that you're still going to draw the vanilla. And it's going to break up your hand a little bit. So playing it at 2 gives you a little bit more consistency of seeing the Gamma. It brings a different hand trap into the game, where now you're threatening the Shifter. That 1 Shifter, with Gamma coming back to 2, Shifters threaten more, if you get what I'm saying. So that's it. We're hitting consistency. We're also hitting problematic cards. And bringing back some cards. This is the card we're bringing back. Summon Sorceress, Elf, Heavy Storm, and Red Reboot. That's it. That's my take. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section. Let me know what you would change. If you put anything in the semi-limited, if you put anything in the unchanged section, right? Because there's a possibility Red Reboot could be unchanged. There's a possibility Summon Sorceress could be unchanged, right? So you could put any one of those in between these 2 spots, but I feel like Appaloosa is also unchanged. This is the final take. Appaloosa is going unchanged. Summon Sorceress is going to be at 1. Red Reboot's going to be at 1. Appaloosa is not going to be touched. IP Masquerena is getting hit. Right. So, let me know what you guys think. That's it. Have a good one.